Hey everyone, and welcome to the 20s Girls Club podcast. We are so excited for today because we are talking about all things health because our PA, Stacie Hoffmann, is here with us in Meg's house, and we couldn't be more excited. We're diving into all the things when it comes to women's health in your 20s. So we're talking about periods, we're talking about birth control, tummy problems, digestion, health trends, like literally you name it, we're talking about it. And we know for sure that you're going to be walking away today with tons of valuable information for you to be healthy and well in your 20s. So if that's something that you're interested in, and I know that you are because you're tuning in already, go ahead and listen to this awesome episode with Stacie Hoffmann. All right, Stacie, tell everyone who you are and what you do and how you got to where you are today.
All right, well, my name is Stacie Hoffmann, and I'm a PA with Viaro Health in La Crosse. I've actually been a healthcare provider in the area for over 27 years. I actually trained within some of the local programs. So I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And I have been interested in primarily women's health primary care, mm-hmm. and been working in that area since about 2008. Mm-hmm. And in about 2016, I just recognized that I wanted something more out of my practice, and women were demanding more from us and the system, and I just felt like I didn't have all the tools to meet their needs. And mm-hmm. so that's when I put on another hat and done more of the functional medicine track, mm-hmm. Just again trying to put more tools in my belt in order to be able to help patients be well, mm-hmm. Because I was getting pretty tired of just practicing sick care, mm-hmm. In the healthcare system, right? So that's where I started to explore that, and mm-hmm. over the years just expanded that, and really found a lot of personal satisfaction in doing that, and found that I really could reach more people and help more people. Mm-hmm. But the reason I made the change out of the system to Viaro was because I just wasn't able to really work to the full scope of my training, and I mm-hmm. just really couldn't grow personally and professionally anymore. And so I really have so much gratitude. I'm so blessed to be able to be working in an environment where I can really now do that, and mm-hmm. Have not as many barriers to being able to practice and just good medicine.
Yeah, mm-hmm. That's so good. Something that I would love for you to explain a little bit more is you mentioned sick care. What do you think, could you define what sick care is, and from your perspective as a physician, what that looked like and how that was just discouraging for you as a physician?
Sure. And just for clarity, I'm a physician assistant, so I'm mm-hmm. a PA, not an MD by training. Mm-hmm. So, but it's the conventional system really is meant for acute care medicine, right? We have acute care treatments, we have surgeries, it does a really good job with that. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, a lot of our issues we're trying to address in conventional healthcare are chronic diseases. They're mm-hmm. lifestyle-driven diseases. And, the system is really built around acute care medicine and not chronic care management. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's just there's time restrictions, there's financial barriers, mm-hmm. because insurance-based systems don't really support wellness, right? There's mm-hmm. no money in that. And so, there's so many caring providers in all of the systems, but mm-hmm. unfortunately, the dynamic of the system makes it challenging to be able to really focus on the needs of patients, right? Mm-hmm. So, the allopathic model is more of the medical model is more about the what disease do you have, mm-hmm. what diagnosis do you have, and then what can I use to help manage your symptoms? Mm-hmm. Whereas, the functional model is more not just about that. That's important to get to know, but it's also more about the why. Right? Mm-hmm. It's more about the root cause. It's not as much about, what disease does a person have, but who's the person that developed this disease or disorder. Mm-hmm. And so you're really kind of looking more at the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a way to distinguish the two.
That's really helpful.
Mm-hmm. No, that is. What has been, I guess, what a lot of people probably don't know what Viaro is. Could you just briefly explain the difference between like a traditional hospital setting you were at versus Viaro, where you are today?
Sure. Viaro Health is a primary care clinic in La Crosse. They've actually been around for many years. They were more in the corporate wellness space initially. They're owned by Weber Group. And the clinic had been partnered with Gunderson Health System for a lot of years when they were working with LHI and Riverside Corporate Wellness. And it just came to a point where I think the CEO of Weber Group really wanted to offer something different for the community because primary care and access in healthcare in general is challenging. And so I think really the vision is to offer primary care services in an environment that is accessible and affordable, and really focusing on whole person care. At Viaro in the primary care clinic, it's outpatient clinic appointments, but we have a lot of other services. We have mental health services, and we have coaching support, and we have physical therapy and full lab and x-ray. And then we have some advanced therapeutics like chiropractic, massage, and acupuncture. We have a fitness center that is actually open to the public. So, and we're trying to implement a lot of new programming where we can really just try to help people support their foundational health across the lifespan. So I think the vision is much more geared towards wellness. And, for people who are sick, we want to help you be well, and if you're well, we want to help you stay well. And again, this is across the lifespan, so we have providers that see all ages. We do take some insurance, and we also take cash, but the foundational model really is something called direct primary care. So it's more of a membership based model, because the reality of it is primary care doesn't belong in the insurance model. The insurance model is really for the what ifs, right? Surgeries, or for hospital medicine or emergency care. But when primary care is really about the day-to-day needs, really. And so the nice thing about the membership is it's a flat monthly rate, which includes essentially all of those services. So you can use it as little or as much as you need to. And access is available. We have a great team seeing patients, and we're hoping to be able to continue to grow to meet the needs of the community.
Yeah, it's so good. The model has been such a great thing for us because we're self-employed, and we were both lucky. Well, actually, I should say I was on my parents' insurance until I was 26, which is great and wonderful. But being self-employed, I didn't have insurance benefits, and so I ended up going to Viaro for my primary care because I was able to access some marketplace insurance for my emergency care. But it's unfortunate where you still pay a deductible and you still get charged for every little thing that you do under the marketplace model to get primary care. And so it was actually funny because you were my PA over at Gunderson, and then I had to switch for my insurance, and then you ended up switching at the same time, which was the best thing ever. But it's cool that there is a model out there for people to get primary care and to actually have their primary needs be met. Because I think some people avoid going and getting their primary care visits if their insurance doesn't cover it, because they don't want to be paying out of pocket I don't know even how much they charge for that, because I know some of it is covered. But so I think that's the thing I love about Viaro is I never have to hesitate to go get care because it's just all included. And so I feel like there's just so much prevention that happens.
Yeah, I think there's no surprises, right? How much you're paying a month. You're committed into a contract for a year, but again, you're not afraid if something comes up to reach out and make sure that you're getting your needs met. So.
Yeah, I feel like I was in that exact boat where I had traditional insurance and I was terrified to go to the doctor because I was like, what if something comes up in here I can't afford my deductible and then get like continued care for it.
Yeah.
So I was the doctor avoider
You
until Viaro. I would go see you annually, but then outside of that, I was always so scared to go. And so it's been such a blessing to not have to fear healthcare and just fear like taking care of myself and knowing exactly what you said, what the cost is going to be every month. So
And it's cool that people are starting to recognize that there's a problem, and like there's people like Viaro, and I know there's other providers out there, clinics out there that are changing up the way that is healthcare. It's super cool. So
Yeah, and the whole DPC model is it's kind of newer in this area, but it is nationally not a new concept. But I think people in the area are still just learning what it's all about. But it's hard because I think one of the biggest barriers for me too, working in the traditional system, was when people would come in for their annuals, they wouldn't want to talk about anything else because of being split billed, because well, that's not preventive care, that's a problem. And then, well, how much is this going to cost me? Or then afterwards, like, how come I got this other bill? And you don't want there to be those kind of barriers for people.
for sure. No, that makes sense.
it just kind of funnels into people having big issues where they're actually forking up a ton of money, or the insurance companies are paying the whole thing's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, the system is really broken, and it's maybe starting to turn around, but it's probably going to be a long time before that happens. And so I think we're just really lucky in this area to have a place, have another option, for people, because not everybody is, has their insurance paid for by their employers, or there's a lot of small businesses, and like you said, there's a lot more need that people have, and it's better to take care of these things early than to let them get too far gone, and then it's harder and more expensive to take care of them.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so this podcast is for girls in their 20s, and so we specifically want to talk about women's health in your 20s. And so we know from our firsthand experience and just from listening to our friends that oftentimes people get super overwhelmed with, okay, I want to be healthier, I want to live a healthy life. What steps should I do to be intentional about prioritizing my health in my 20s? And so we'd love if you'd just speak on what it looks like to be intentional in your 20s with taking care of your health and well-being.
Sure. Well, I really think the first step is, two-part: observation and learning. So observe and learn. Because I think you really do have to build a self-awareness and establish a baseline. Because you can't improve what you don't understand. And so it's a matter of defining your why. Why do I need my health, and what am I willing to do for it? And so intentional health really starts with purpose. You need to build a support system also that values wellness, and, kind of just really spend that time initially just really kind of answering those questions. So.
Yeah, I feel like that is the observe one. I think might be the thing that people may miss, is just becoming observant of what it means to actually be healthy. And I think for some people, I don't know if you see this, but sometimes it takes something really bad to happen to start to observe that, hey, I might be in my 20s, but I'm not invincible. And I think that's kind of what happened for me. Was I did have some health stuff come up throughout my life that made me realize, okay, I don't want to be feeling this way forever. But I guess for those who maybe don't have underlying health stuff right now, and they would deem themselves, hey, I am healthy, I feel good. Do you have any advice for them on just like how to become more observant of, I don't know how I'm trying to say this, but like how to become more observant of their health when they just feel healthy right now?
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the myths, right? You had, one of the questions you had asked me was about, what's one myth that you would want to dispel. And I think too, if you're young and in your 20s, you're not really thinking about your future life, your future self, your health, because you're like, you're more resilient to things. But the reality of it is, like, this decade of your life is really foundational for your long-term health, right? So the habits and choices that you're making at this stage of life really shape everything moving forward. Everything from metabolic health to reproductive health, even bone health and brain health and, future disease risk. And it's easy, and not to think we really need to become obsessive about those things and worry about those things. But I think it's important to be mindful about those things because we are seeing, autoimmune disease and cancer and fertility problems and menstrual problems and just a variety of other health issues happening younger and younger and younger. And I mean, a lot of it really can be impacted by getting enough sleep and managing your stress and eating a nourishing diet and, a lot of, really just good self-care. Metabolic dysfunction specifically can begin silently, even years before you really have any symptoms. So really prevention starts with just, kind of just being mindful of self-love, really.
That makes
Could
sense.
you explain what metabolic function is?
Sure. So like when, unfortunately, only about 7% of the U.S. population is metabolically healthy. So 7%.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Yes. And it's not only about, being overweight or obese, because there are a lot of unhealthy, thin women, especially, and men out there. And so to be metabolically healthy, there's, some criteria we look at, like blood sugar control, body mass index, yes, is part of that. I focus more on body composition, right, than BMI, because you can have an elevated BMI but be very muscular. What's going on with your lipids, what's going on with your blood pressure, because insulin resistance, for instance, and blood sugar issues can become dysregulated before you really have any symptoms. So we're really looking at those more, the metabolic, the cardiovascular disease risks. We're seeing high blood pressure happen in younger people. And again, it's not only the people who, have challenges with the weight, it's, people who are, busy executives or, running busy podcasts who have, a lot of stuff on their plate, right? And just unfortunately not, and maybe overdoing, energy drinks and, stimulants and, smoking or alcohol or, and for instance, alcohol is a big risk factor for developing hypertension. I will see women in their 20s and 30s who really are otherwise healthy, but, some of their stress management is coming from alcohol consumption. And as a consequence of that, they have hypertension. And so we try to moderate their alcohol and their blood pressure gets better. I mean, could I put them on a medication to help manage their blood pressure? Yes, because we don't want them to have a stroke or heart attack. But ultimately, if I do start someone on a conventional therapy, I'm always thinking about how I can get them off of it again. So.
That makes sense.
That's good.
I kind of want to circle back quick to like the observe part, where as a girl in their 20s, what should be those things they even start trying to observe? Like you mentioned sleep. Is it sleep, food? I know you've talked to us about poop and our period cycles. Like what are maybe some of the basic things that women could start paying attention to in their lives?
Yeah. I mean, as you girls know, gut health is really foundational. Just because so many things stem from a healthy gut. 70% of your immune system is in your gut. A majority of your neurotransmitters are made in your gut. 50% of your dopamine, which is like your motivational neurotransmitter, 90% really of your serotonin is made in your gut.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so, our gut really is our second brain. And so, paying attention to, because a lot of women are constipated, right? You should be having a healthy poop at least once a day. And
yes, girls.
Right. And if you're not doing that, and what's a healthy poop? That is, smooth like a snake, and passes easily and, not straining, no mucus, no blood, no cramping, and if that's not happening, if you're, pooping milk duds or having diarrhea, like that's not normal. And it could be normal for you. There's a lot of women who say, well, pooping twice a week or once a week is normal. That's how I've been my whole life. It's like, okay, it might be, normal for you, but it's really not healthy.
Yeah.
So, but again, sleep definitely is a huge variable because a lot of things happen in our sleep. We detoxify, we rest and recover. And so, getting 7 to 9 hours of restful restorative sleep, unplugging from our devices at least an hour or so before bed, getting that bedtime routine. I mean, you girls probably remember when you were toddlers, like it was bath book bed, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do we lose sight of that as
Interesting.
young adults or
Yeah.
or older adults?
Yeah.
I mean, having a bedtime ritual is really, critical to rest and recovery, right? And we all know if you're sleep deprived, and they've even done, studies, right? Like comparing being, sleepy and driving and drunk driving, right? And being sleep deprived is actually worse than being drunk when driving, right? So, I mean, you can become really impaired and not feel well. I'm glad you brought up the menstrual period because, really I think about the menstrual period as your fifth vital sign, right? Blood pressure and temperature and pulse and respiratory rate. But the menstrual cycle really, I mean, it really is a window to a woman's soul. And so, what's normal, what's not normal. So a period typically normal could be once anywhere from 21 to 35 days. Usually duration of flow 5 to 7 days with maybe a day or two a little bit of heavier flow, maybe changing protection every few hours, 3 to 4 hours. But if you're going through pads or tampons every hour or not making it through the night, having clotting, having cramping, that's a sign that there's an imbalance somewhere going on in your body. So those are definitely things to bring to a healthcare provider's attention because we really shouldn't be suffering with our periods. But they should happen about once a month. If you go more than 3 months without a period, that's also a concern. Irregular periods can be a sign of some other imbalance going on as well. So.
That's very helpful. I think that'll be a good just like starting place for a lot of people to be like, okay, check in with myself, what's going on in all those areas. And I know that was very helpful for us when we first started with you of like, oh, I didn't even know it was weird that my cycle, I skip it all the time where it's 45 days and it's just like all over the place. So
Yes, a lot of women do come and they don't have a lot of insight in or understanding of their periods. Even women in their 40s and 50s, understanding kind of what happens during the menstrual cycle.
Yeah. And so I guess I'm curious for women who maybe are at a traditional conventional primary care, what they should do if they have concerns with their period. Because I know for me, I had concerns about my period where I had really painful periods growing up, realized I had endometriosis, and for me, I learned so much once I started to see you about how to heal the root cause of that. But before that, it was more of kind of the Band-Aid solution to help minimize some of the symptoms. And so I guess what would you recommend to women who maybe don't have a provider that's going to the root cause?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the conventional space, I mean, some of it does come down to quality of life, right? I mean, if you have horrible heavy periods and you're becoming anemic and you can't function for the 3-4 days before your period into the week of your period, I mean, there are a lot of really helpful conventional therapies. And, in the conventional primary care space, and whether or not your primary care provider feels comfortable or refers you to OBGYN, they're going to give you options such as, birth control pills, IUD, what can we do to try to control those symptoms? Because we don't want you getting anemic, and not everybody tolerates taking iron because then it constipates and messes with your gut, right? So those are things to think about. So really the decision needs to be made in terms of like, how urgent is this, right? So if you're anemic, if your quality of life is bad, I mean, we might have to do something initially. I mean, because of course our goal is always to keep you safe. I wear my allopathic hat first, but I don't stop there. Again, I always like to think about, well, is there something else I need to look at? What's going on with your lifestyle? What's going on? I mean, some of these things you may have a genetic predisposition towards, but, genes aren't your destiny, right? So just because you may be genetically predisposed to having an issue with your periods because mom and grandma and all my sisters had really horrible heavy periods, or everybody has endometriosis, doesn't necessarily mean that that's your destiny. So, I mean, I really encourage young women to advocate for themselves and really figure out like what's best for them. I mean, when you're meeting with your providers, you want all the information so you can make an informed decision. But if you don't feel absolutely comfortable with the recommendations, then it's a matter of trying to seek out somebody who maybe can, look with a broader lens and be able to do that deeper dive. Especially in the 20s, it's not as likely in your 20s that, it's something really bad causing heavy bleeding, like a woman in their mid to late 40s. I mean, at that time, yes, we think about things like, uterine cancer and big fibroids and other things. And so they may require a little bit more of a workup. But I think, again, just trying to, understand that there are options. And, I think birth control pills are great for contraception, but not everybody in their 20s needs or wants that method of contraception. And it doesn't come without a trade-off, right? I mean, birth control pills really are not benign things. They're synthetic hormones that for some people they just don't tolerate, and coming off of them for some people can be a challenge. They can really mess with mood. They contribute to leaky gut. They contribute to nutrient deficiencies. And again, don't get me wrong, I prescribe a lot of birth control pills because people don't want to be pregnant, and I think that's totally appropriate. But we also see birth control pills, being prescribed just to reduce a period flow or to help clear up skin. I mean, I have some very good conversations with people about appropriate indications and use. And for some people, they feel that the benefit outweighs the risk. But again, I feel like they need to make an informed decision. So you really need to meet with a provider who's going to be able to kind of talk to you about all of those things.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so helpful. So we know that a lot of women right now are deciding to go off birth control because they're learning about some of the risks that they can have while being on the pill. So what would you recommend women to do to prepare for that transition, and what conversation should they be having with their medical professional?
Sure. Well, I think for one, are you really okay being off of contraception? So because if you're choosing to be sexually active, you have to be open to the potential for pregnancy, right? I mean, the birth control pill does prevent pregnancy when there are occasional times where it does fail, but generally it's a very good method of contraception. But coming off of birth control pills really can be a pretty major hormonal transition for some women, and it can take 3 to 6 months or longer for a woman to kind of, I should say, reawaken in a sense, for kind of your cycles to become naturally more regulated. A lot of times coming off of the pill, your periods will go back to what they were like before you went on the pill. So just remembering that, like why you went on the pill. Did you have your regular periods? Were they heavier periods? A lot of times that will happen. Some women remain amenorrheic after discontinuation of birth control pills, which, can happen.
What does that mean?
That just means they don't have periods. It takes a while for their periods to start again. But I usually will tell people if you go off the pill and you don't have a period within 3 months, to definitely let us know, because then we may do a little more investigation in terms of labs, or try to give you a period with some progestin, see if we can trigger that withdrawal bleed. Sometimes it just takes a little while for the system to wake up. The other thing is that those synthetic hormones that you've been taking really have to be detoxified through the liver and the gut. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the pill can cause some increased intestinal permeability, It also can contribute to nutrient insufficiencies, like B vitamins, for instance, become very depleted with birth control pills. And that sometimes can have an impact on women's mood. Some, not an uncommon reason for women to stop using birth control pills is because they get depressed. And sometimes that's because the B vitamins become so depleted because you need B vitamins in order to make neurotransmitters. You can't make serotonin and dopamine without B6, and the birth control pills can deplete those. So typically when I have anybody on birth control pills, I'm having them on a daily multivitamin just to fill in some of those nutritional gaps. And in my opinion, all women of reproductive age, if there's a chance of pregnancy, should be on a multivitamin because we know folic acid can prevent neural tube defects or spina bifida. So I just think it's a good idea to have that backup. I mean, I'm a food first kind of a gal. I really like people to be eating good, nourishing foods. And the types of foods to help support liver detoxification and gut health would be things like cruciferous vegetables, for instance, and ground flaxseed, and because a lot of hormone balance, any hormone detoxification, whether it's your natural hormones or synthetic hormones, all happens in the gut and liver. So those are also some really important things to be doing afterwards. Not over exercising, because sometimes that can disrupt hormones. Our bodies do need some amount of body fat to make estrogen, because all of our hormones come from cholesterol too. So if you're not eating a well-balanced diet, that could also contribute to the delay and kind of reawakening of your system.
That's really
Very interesting.
it is interesting. I'm sure you've tested my B vitamins before, but I'm like, are my B vitamins okay? Because sometimes I get a little sad.
Same thing.
I really struggled when I got off birth control, which I don't think I was walking with, I think it was probably a year after I went off birth control, I started seeing you. Maybe it was 6 months. But I kind of I've heard people call it the rubber band effect, where it's almost like when you start birth control, when you have all these symptoms, it can kind of pull the rubber band back. And then when you get off of it, it can kind of be like the rubber band kind of snaps, and all the things that you had before being on the pill can come back, and sometimes it can come back with the vengeance, which I don't know if you see that, and I don't know where I got that analogy, but I definitely experienced that. And I'm grateful that I went off when I did, because I think it has allowed for me, where I think I've had a lot of aftermath from the pill, and it's allowed me time to slowly, day by day, make wise decisions to help me heal and regain just the gut health and the hormonal health that I need to be healthy and well. And so I don't know, I talk with girls though, and they're scared to get off the pill, where maybe they're not on the pill for contraception. And so wait, did I say that right? Contraception?
Yep.
Okay. They're not on the pill for contraception, so they want to be off of it, but they're really scared because they hear all the horror stories. And so I think all the advice that you gave will be really, really helpful for them.
Acne especially, right? I mean, acne can get a lot worse, right, when you stop the pill, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a forever thing, right? And so that is where, just kind of, dialing in on the skincare, dialing in on, the diet and the sleep and the hydration and all of those things, and just helping your gut and liver detoxify all those synthetic hormones. A lot of times, within 3 to 6 months, but sometimes longer for some, it can start to improve. So
that makes sense.
This is a random question, but is there a way to know if your liver needs detoxing? Is there a way to test
that? Or if it's
that?
Not functioning,
or if it's congested? Can we test that?
Yeah. So sometimes I will look at a panel of labs, like in a comprehensive metabolic panel, there's liver function tests. There's a more sensitive liver function test called a GGT, which is a pretty sensitive marker. Although the reality of it is, by the time your liver enzymes are out of range, you're pretty sick.
Okay.
I mean, the liver can be sluggish. Again, and this is my more functional hat talking, because again, we, in the conventional space, I mean, we look at liver function tests and we consider it to be okay if they're up to 3 times outside of the reference range. They're still okay. And for me, when I will interpret labs, I look more at optimal ranges, right? Functional ranges. And so I will look at those liver enzyme tests, and even if they're within the reference range, you can get a sense if something might be a little off or a little bit sluggish. I think in general, because we live in such a toxic environment, I mean, we should naturally be eating foods that offer support for detoxification, because we can't like avoid toxins and pesticides and things we're breathing in the air. I mean, you can control just so much. So this is why dialing in on the diet is so important, where you're eating cruciferous vegetables and eating broccoli sprouts and, eating, different classes of food and getting that fiber. I mean, most women, when I have them track, the guidelines say, 25 grams of fiber is enough for a woman. Most women are getting between 8 and 12 grams of fiber a day, but they think they're doing a really good job until we have them actually, track it and see. And I like women to be getting closer to 35 grams of fiber a day, for metabolic health, for balancing blood sugar, for helping with, cholesterol, but especially, with gut health and toxic burden. Just because, I mean, we put things on our skin, parabens and phthalates, all these endocrine disruptors that we're exposed to in our environment. I mean, some products we're just not willing to give up, right? So again, it's not about deprivation, but you just better be dialing in on supporting your body so that it can handle it. So
That's so good. I need to track my fiber.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was
haven't
like,
done
I
that.
have no idea how much fiber I'm getting.
yeah, sometimes I'll just have people use an app like MyFitnessPal for a couple of weeks
Yep.
and just put it in there. Again, not to get crazy obsessive
Yeah.
about calories, but more looking at like how of my daily calories, what percentage is coming from protein, what percentage is coming from fat and carbohydrates. Are most of my carbohydrates coming from plants? And how many grams of fiber? And the other thing I encourage people to also look at is how much added sugar you're getting in a day.
Yeah, that's
Because
huge.
it can be hidden in so many things. And so I try to encourage women across the lifespan to consume no more than 24 grams of added sugar a day. That's 6 teaspoons. It's a lot of sugar, but like if you just look at like a commercial yogurt brand, it might have 27 grams of sugar in that. So I think it just helps you get savvy about reading labels and be more intentional about what you're putting in your body.
Yeah, that's
Because
good.
if you put crap in, you get crap out, right?
Yeah.
I think sugar's been one of the things that you taught me the most, or the thing that I'm most aware of now. Is normally when I look at labels, the first thing I look at is sugar and how much sugar is in things. And it's crazy. Like, I don't like condiments. If you know me, you know I don't like, ketchup is like my number one enemy in life. But look at how much sugar is in ketchup. It's crazy. And yeah, like you said, the things you just wouldn't expect, like yogurt, where I know a lot of women have yogurt because we know that it has probiotics in it, and we think that we're doing a favor for our gut. Not saying that you aren't, but when there's 30 grams of sugar in it, you
have to be particular. I mean, you just have to be smart about reading labels and try not to be fooled by the advertising. Right? Like you have to become a savvy consumer.
Yeah, that's good.
Would added sugar, I actually don't think I know this, but I should. Would added sugar include if they add like maple syrup or coconut sugar to products?
We have a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think different sweeteners, right, have different glycemic load. If you're going to add something, I usually will lean more towards the maple syrup or the honey, rather than the other sugar substitutes. And there's nothing good about high fructose corn syrup, so trying to avoid that like the plague, super important as well. And then the other place too, that I think, especially young women, I talk to them a lot about, is really being aware of those hidden artificial sweeteners. Specifically, just an example that is always so shocking to the young women, because when people go out with friends, they're usually kind of leaning towards the seltzer drinks, right? So the carbless or those types of drinks. Well, if you really pay attention, the majority of those have sucralose in them. Sucralose is a horrible artificial sweetener. And so I do encourage women to be mindful. If you can find something that you like that has stevia in it, that's better. But really try to avoid the sucralose. And which it's very hard to find the information about the what artificial sweetener is in some of those products. They're not super open about that. But just because it says, 0 carbs, know what they're replacing it with, because it's so disruptive to the gut microbiome.
That makes sense. Is monk fruit normal sweetener, or is that like
a little
the
bit better?
stevia?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like this on the same probably line as stevia.
Okay.
But sometimes too with some of the sweeteners, it's your gut may tell you if you don't like it. Because some of those can cause more bloating and gas.
That makes sense.
So I try to stick with just the natural sweeteners like the maple syrup or the honey. I think those are your better bets. So
that makes sense.
It's good.
Before you were talking about how there's a lot of foods that can support detox, is there any other practices outside of food that people can be doing in their day-to-day or week-to-week that support detox?
yeah, I mean, of course, drinking water, right? You detoxify not just in your stool, but in your sweat.
Like a 40-ounce water bottle.
Yeah,
I don't
in
know
your
where mine
sweat
is.
and in your
Speaking of
urine,
which.
right? So anything that is going to move things through. I mean, most of us are chronically dehydrated. We really have to be intentional about our water intake. We need to move, so we sweat. And for some people, they don't sweat a lot when they exercise, so that's where sauna can come in and be a little bit handy there. But sweating is a great way to detoxify. So anything, and that's why constipation's a problem, right? You have to be pooping. You have to take the trash out every single day, at least once a day, because your body works really hard to package up these toxins so that you can eliminate them. So trying to do, but the thing is, the best thing about the food is that's really what's supporting the nutrients to process in the liver so that it can get to the bile or the urine or the sweat. So that's where that comes in.
How much water would you recommend?
I usually tell people, basically half your body weight in ounces up to 100 ounces a day. So if you're 120 pounds, you're 60 ounces ish a day, at least. So
Okay.
yeah, and I try not to get so hung up on the numbers. I like people drinking enough water so that their pee is clear. Then you've had enough.
Yeah.
So I feel like sometimes we just get so fixated on the numbers. And if you're peeing clear and you're still thirsty, that still says maybe intracellularly you're still having a little bit of issue.
That makes sense. What are your thoughts on adding minerals or electrolytes to water?
I think it depends on how active you are, right? I mean, more isn't necessarily better, right? We don't want people to get too much sodium or potassium in their diet, drinking a lot of that. But if you're doing things that are having you sweat, or if you're drinking a lot of filtered water, then you're not getting the natural minerals.
True.
I mean, one of the other issues, this is kind of a tangent, but our mineral supply in our soil is so depleted. So even people who are drinking water out of a well, for instance, like the nutritional lithium that we get is just so depleted compared to what we used to get. And lithium is actually really important for mood. And so some of the trace minerals that people will put in water a little bit, have a lot of minerals, even including lithium. So, so important things to think about. Magnesium, obviously super important. And, our soil's very depleted of that. So I think you have to be careful, try not to overdo it.
Yeah.
But if you are definitely, sweating and losing salts, you replacing them is not an unreasonable thing. Plus, it does help people drink a little bit more water, too, because it's a little flavoring.
Yeah, that's good.
That's how I get my husband to drink water. It's with electrolytes.
Anything works. Jacob calls his electrolytes each day his one little treat that he gives himself. It's just funny. But your thoughts on filtering water and the importance of that?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of things in water that potentially can be hard on your body, especially fluorinated water and a lot of halogens. And so I think, too, a lot of people are drinking water out of plastic bottles, which is contributing more to the BPA, which is highly associated with endocrine disruption in the body. And so I think trying to be mindful, whether it's reverse osmosis or using like a zero water filter, but then you also need to make sure that you're replacing some of those things that you're not getting from the water. So
That makes sense.
I was going to ask such a random niche question. This is more for me personally.
Okay.
Have you seen the sauna blankets before? Where it's
I
almost
have.
like a little,
Yeah.
blanket tube thing that you can
yeah,
lay
because
in.
not everybody can afford an
Yeah.
infrared sauna in their house or
Yeah,
other
because they're
options.
usually around like $400.
Yeah, they're not inexpensive. I don't really have a lot of experience with those or like, to necessarily make a recommendation.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that, is still going to make you sweat, which you can do with exercise, right?
Right.
But I don't really have as much experience with those to know, like, do those provide more value than like a traditional sauna
Yeah.
or a infrared sauna?
That makes sense.
So,
I've been wanting to do more research because I don't sweat when I work out. No matter how hard I'm going, unless I go for a run.
Meg's a princess.
If I go for a run or something, which I don't try to, that's not my
Sure.
how I normally work out.
Yeah.
I'll sweat at the very end, right when I stop working out is
Sure.
when I'll start sweating. And then even when I go in a sauna, it usually takes 25 minutes for me to start sweating. But I don't have access to a sauna with not working out at the YMCA anymore, so I've considered getting a sauna blanket or something like that. But
Yeah.
maybe we can talk about that more the next time I have an appointment.
yeah, you
Save
can.
that for the appointment.
I'll do a little bit of investigation or research, but yeah, I don't really know that I would. I mean, I can think about. I'd rather have you spending that money on food that's going to detoxify
Yeah,
you.
that makes sense.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things out there, but if you don't have the resources, there's basic stuff you can do to live a good, healthy life. You don't have to be spending all kinds of money on these fancy things.
That's
That
good.
makes sense.
It's more of a want than a need,
Yeah.
right?
Something you told me, I ran into you at I think it was Aldi a few years ago, and I remember you giving me just the advice of anything that you purchase on the outer circle of the store is the best foods for you to eat, because I think people think that eating healthy is expensive, which I'm not saying that it is not expensive, and I know that access to good, clean food is oftentimes a privilege for many, but I think I've been really opened up to, if you buy simply and you buy in the outside of the store in the produce section at Aldi, that it actually is pretty comparable in price if you're intentional about it. And so I don't know if you have any other pieces of advice for people when it comes to just shopping and eating healthy.
So yeah, shop the perimeter always. That's really the most important place to be in the grocery store. And the reality is you can eat healthy on a budget. Pay attention to Dirty Dozen, Clean 15. That's Environmental Working Group puts out recommendations for the basically the top contaminated foods. If you can't do everything organic, at least focusing on those foods. Also being mindful to eat seasonally, right? Our bodies are designed to eat different foods at different times of the year, but with the convenience stores and farming practices changing and, Walmart being, available all the time. We're really, and when you look at the food that, certain times of year, strawberries just don't taste good. They don't look good. And we're not really supposed to be eating strawberries in January, right?
Yeah.
Unless, of course, if they were frozen and, picked fresh and frozen, your quality is better. But in terms of fresh foods, but that's a way too that you can eat on a budget, right? So if you're paying attention to seasonal variation and trying to alter your meal plans to fit the time of year, we're supposed to have more sugar and sweet things in the spring and into the summer, right? Because we're supposed to get ready for hibernation in the winter, right? Or when there's not as much abundance of food, when we were hunting and gathering, decades ago. So, just trying to be mindful of that. This is why in the fall and winter we do more soups and stews and more root vegetables and those types of things. And in the spring and summer, we're eating things a little bit different. So that's another thing to be mindful of when you're spending money, right? Because just trying to make sure that you're, buying what's in season because it's going to be cheaper. Because a container of strawberries in, a non-season time of year is going to cost you $6 or $7.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you're going to end up throwing half of them away because they taste bad anyway. So
Yeah. Organic asparagus is now $9. It's like a spring vegetable.
yeah,
That's crazy.
And I'm like, it's because we're not supposed to be eating it.
Yeah.
yes, very
And
true.
I
very
get
true.
a little aggressive with with my friends about like, I had this thing last winter where it was you or was it you or Jacob?
We both did it in the same week where we recommended eating zucchini.
And I was
And
like,
Liv was like, no.
absolutely not. We are not eating zucchini. That is a summer vegetable. There's a reason why it's expensive. It makes me want to just throw up just thinking about it. And they were like,
Okay.
we're sorry we brought up the idea. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Well, your body was hungry for it though, so
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but if you're looking for tips and tricks to try to nourish your body, but do it on a budget, like those are the things to pay attention to. And there's just nothing good about processed food, right? It's so inflammatory, and it can affect everything from the gut to the skin, to the brain. So just trying to minimize exposure as much as you can to those things. So
That's super helpful. If you could go back and tell your 20-year-old self anything about health, what would it be?
yeah, I think it's a very pertinent question at this stage of life because, I've gone through now reverse puberty, right? So I'm in the menopausal stage of life, and reflecting back even, 20 years ago, if I would have known then what I know now, things might be a little bit different. But the one thing that I would tell my 20-year-old self is strength over thinness. I really think there's not enough focus on being strong. And when you think about bone health, which a lot of 20-year-olds are not thinking about,
Yeah.
we are seeing our elders become elderly at such a much younger age. And your peak bone mass happens between the age of 25 and 30. And that is very dependent on your muscle mass. And so focusing on being strong, and that also is going to help change the trajectory of your metabolic health, because we know muscle mass equals longevity. Muscle mass is important for glycemic control and insulin resistance. And so, being strong also is important for cognitive health. When we do strength training, it increases a substance in the brain called brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is like miracle grow for the brain. So there's just so many benefits. And the cardio is important, the movement is important. I encourage women to get out and get in nature, get your steps in. But 2 to 3 days of strength training, and it doesn't have to be a gym membership. You can do hand weights or resistance bands at home. Since COVID, there's so many YouTube things and people you can follow on Instagram. Find what works for you. But I think really the focus needs to be so much more about strength and not so much about being thin.
That's
That
so
makes
good.
sense.
That's the kick
That's
in the butt we need.
Yeah, convicting. I was debating if I'd go to the gym this afternoon.
I know, I literally am
went
like...
once. I did go once this week, and because I was just doing Pilates for a bit, which is great, and I love it, but it hasn't been fitting in my schedule. So I was like, I need to actually go back to strength training. I know, Stacie, you've talked to me about this before. And so I did a leg day earlier this week, but I haven't gone back since. So this
Do
is
you want to go to the gym tonight?
Yeah, let's do it.
Like, for real.
Yeah. But it's so helpful to hear, just like you say that, where
I need to play
I think
this on
we can
repeat.
just we feel good now, and we feel good about our bodies, and we're not thinking about our future selves and how we're impacting ourselves then. And we're in that in-between age
I
right
know,
now.
I just turned
We're
27.
26 and 27,
Yeah.
so it is good to actually
Got 3 years to
think
get it
about.
together.
Yeah, it's important. And that way it's going to be easier too for you to maintain it, because
Yeah.
consistency is the key. Once you're developing a routine, once you're establishing those habits, it's going to be second nature. And
Yeah.
as you grow your families and life gets busier, this is a way of life then for future generations, right?
That's true.
So it's a way for you to carry health through your lifespan and also to pass it on. So
That's good.
Wow. I like actually need that exact thing on like first thing I hear in the morning is like go be strong, live.
Yeah.
Your future family depends on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
important
That's
stuff.
good.
What's your go-to wellness product or practice that you swear by?
Yeah, I'm really not a big product person per se. I'm more of the practice person. And so for me, it is getting out in natural light in the morning. It is walking. It is seeing that sunrise or that sunset. Having quiet time, just even short times. I call them like meditation snacks. Sometimes, when I'm in a patient appointment, typically the visits I have with patients are, powerful. I mean, there's a lot of information talked about, and they're good for the patients, they're good for me, but sometimes you just need to push the pause in between, and I think that's where either breath work or meditation can be really, really helpful, just as kind of a reset.
That's so
So that's my go-to.
Yeah, I think that's honestly so helpful in such a like product driven age, or just even with social media where we're just like consuming product to just kind of go back to the basics even of like what can I just do with the resources around me and just like the free things that can be so foundational. So that's very helpful.
Well, and I think too, like when you get up in the morning, like that is really the best time. And in fact, I think I had a note about this. Starting the morning with one mindful, nourishing action before you even reach for your phone.
That's good.
Right? I think it's really important, because just stopping and asking yourself, what does my body need today? Right? And just being intentional about that. And whether it's something like, okay, every morning when I get up, I'm going to drink a full glass of water, or I'm going to take 5 deep breaths, or I'm going to, get outside, just for that short walk. But it really does anchor you for your day in presence instead of reaction. And I think, that's just so important, because one consistent act of self-respect each morning really rewires your identity too, from being like, well, I'm lost and I don't know what to do, to I'm someone who really takes care of myself.
Wow, that's so good. I feel like that's just so good for girls in their 20s too, because I think there is so much of like that reactiveness and the like, who am I? What am I supposed to do? And so that's such a good nugget.
Being purpose-driven, I think.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's
Okay,
super helpful.
well, let's finish this podcast off with a few rapid-fire questions. We decided to pick out some of the most popular Instagram health trends for girls in their 20s, and we just would love to know if you would recommend it or if you wouldn't recommend it. So we'll cruise through these pretty quickly. So the first one that we have on our list is grounding.
Yep. I am a very big fan of grounding. I mean, I'm more so natural grounding, right? Like get outside, get your feet in the grass, be in connection with the earth. Now, of course, because our fall and winter season is coming, it does make it a little bit more challenging. Of course, there's a lot of products out there. I do have a grounding sheet on my bed, and I do think that it makes a difference. I have a grounding mat too, and it does seem to help. So I think, buyer beware. I think there's a lot of different products out there that are, not real reliable or valuable. So, I would say if it's right for you, I think it's something that you could consider.
Yeah.
That's good. I have grounding sheets.
Yeah, I do too.
And a pad, and I do love it.
I think I do notice a difference, even though that's definitely one of the health things that I do that I feel like I get the most pushback on from other people.
Yeah.
One thing that's kind of interesting about grounding sheets is my little dog, he's only, 13 pounds, he comes in bed in the morning, and since we put that on our bed, he'll find the spot to lay on it, and he's not all that interested in getting up as quickly as he used to. So I even think he finds some benefit in it.
That's interesting.
Which is really interesting.
No, I feel like when we first started using them, I started to feel like glued to the bed in the morning, which I kind of like grew out of that, where at first they say it can feel that way, and I thought I was totally going to be this like hocus pocus myth, and then sure enough I literally did feel that way. And so I don't know, I feel like I just sleep deeper now. And I used to be really fatigued in the morning. I just kind of, with some of my health stuff, I really experienced fatigue, and I feel like I experience way less fatigue, which could be also other health things that I'm doing. But yeah.
Okay. The next one is lymphatic drainage.
Yeah, so I like massage. I like dry brushing. I know there are some people in the area that do specific lymphatic massage. I don't have a lot of really personal experience with it, so I can't really comment so much on the therapeutic benefit of that. But, you know, even the grounding can help improve, you know, circulation and stuff too. So
That makes sense.
But yeah, I think with anything, if you feel like it works and it's not harmful, you can go ahead and try it.
Yeah, that's good. How about cold plunging? And we'll just tack saunaing on. I know we talked about that already, but maybe more cold plunge.
Yeah, so again, sauna we already talked about. Cold plunge, I mean, I think something as simple as just ending the end of your shower with 30 to 60 seconds of cold water is probably enough. I don't think people need to invest a ton of money into having a cold plunge tank, but it definitely has some benefit for mitochondrial health, so, and longevity maybe.
30 seconds at the end of a shower sounds brutal.
It does.
I bet it would wake you right up though.
I got one of the like rings that tracks everything, and I always really struggled with my HRV drop at nighttime, and it gives recommendations on how to improve that, and one of them was cold plunging, which I never cold plunged before, but I had the opportunity to cold plunge, and the night that I cold plunged, my HRV was excellent for the first time, and I was like, that's crazy. So I don't have a cold plunge, but maybe I have to do the cold shower.
Yes, shower and just end it with a good, minute of standing and freezing.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's probably good mentally as well. Practice.
Practice baby steps. Start with just like 15 seconds and work your way up.
No, that is good. What about castor oil?
They're messy. I think they're really messy and hard to do. I think in the right situation, I don't think it's like a global thing that I would recommend for everyone. But if you needed a little bit of advanced detox support, I think potentially there could be some benefit there. But, you have to be careful because you would have the potential to make yourself sicker doing that if the timing wasn't right.
That makes sense.
So.
A good thing for someone to probably actually consult their doctor on.
Not me at the last doctor's appointment with you saying that I castor oil pack almost every night, and you're like, you need to stop doing that. And I said, got it.
Maybe back off a little bit.
I'm down to once a week. That's
good.
It just helps me go to the I don't know, it's like clockwork for the bathroom for me. Anytime I wear a castor oil pack, the next day, poo-poo in the morning. Cycle syncing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to thinking about, earlier we were talking about menstrual cycle, and a lot of women don't really understand the different phases of the menstrual cycle. So I think that can help empower women and educate them, and also be more in tune with their body about how they feel during each part of the cycle. Because like really high intensity workouts, I wouldn't do them right before your period or the week of your period, because that season of the monthly change is really not meant to be pushing yourself. I think about the menstrual cycle like seasons, summer, spring, fall, or spring, summer, fall, and winter. And so I think when it comes to workouts, when it comes to resting, when it comes to nutrition, I do think there's definitely some things to pay attention to.
That's good. Maybe we shouldn't go too hard in the gym tonight because we're both about to get
We're
a period.
both about to get
Maybe we should just do like 20
Some
squats,
light
some
arm, triceps.
Yeah, we could probably get it done here. Okay, 3 more. Red light therapy.
I do think that it can provide a lot of benefit, especially for inflammation. In fact, I am hoping there's a Black Friday special on the Loom box because I'm seriously thinking about getting one for home. So yeah, that would be a yes.
Okay.
Awesome. What about mouth taping?
I think it's appropriate for people who snore, but other than that, I don't really see a lot of value in it.
That makes sense.
And our last thing, just protein-packed meals. Protein's a big one right now.
That's a yes. That's an absolute yes. I mean, that's where I see women really, struggling. And so, it's hard to really increase your protein and do that and the fiber that you need. So supplementation may be an option to fill in the nutritional gaps, although you have to be careful, with protein powders too, because, and I think there was just something in the news. I mean, many of them do contain lead, so we don't need to add toxic burden. So again, you need to be a savvy consumer. And that's one thing too at Viaro that we have offered, just because it's really hard to find high quality supplements. So we do offer access to Full Script, which is an online supplement dispensary, as well as Nutridyne. Just again, we're doing that really just to make supplementation more accessible for people.
That's good. I feel like that was something that was eye-opening, was the fact that not all supplements are good supplements, and so just to be informed with that is.
And it can be hard to know where to even start with researching them, of like what actually makes a supplement good versus not good. So having the Full Scripts platform at Viaro has been super helpful to have you just be like, these are good options for you to take.
Yeah, because they're not regulated. We like to make sure that you're using a good product that's third-party tested and quality seal on the label, and minimal ingredients and fillers. So it's a better option in my opinion.
That makes sense.
I think that's all of our questions. Well, I think that this podcast was phenomenal.
It was awesome. I feel like I learned so much.
Even though I feel like we've had like 12, I've been at like 15 appointments with you, but I still feel like I learned a lot today. So thank you so much for being here. We're so grateful.
Thanks for having me. It was exciting to be involved, and I hope that it's my mission and vision to really try to get as much education out there and empower young girls and women across the lifespan to really take control of their and agency of their health.
So good. Well, we're so inspired by you. So thanks for being here.
You bet.